program director for the Be Nimble Upskilling Program, also a board member for the Be Nimble Foundation, and founder and CEO of the Kite Mail app. But tonight, I am excited to introduce you all to someone I think will provide you guys with a lot of helpful experience about specifically UX and UI. I know that many of you all are currently enrolled in that program. Format today is really going to allow her to have him to have the platform to be able to, go through their whatever slides or presentation they may have, but we also want to make sure there's plenty of time for question and answer with you all. So I'm going to read a bio to you as soon as I can find it. There it is. Because I really want you all to have a great idea of just the quality. So Dorsh Deans currently serves as the UX architect for Eli Lilly and the chief experience officer for PB&Jane Design. He is passionate about creating user experiences that enhance the way people work, communicate, and interact. Dorsh specializes in building bespoke UX design solutions for Fortune 100 and 500 companies, startups, and global brands. Over the last 13 years, he has consulted as a UX subject matter expert for companies like Barclays, Chase, Pentagon Federal Credit Union, Paley Center for Media, People's United Bank, the city of Indianapolis, and Cisco Meraki, to name a few. Moreover, Dorsh is also an adjunct professor at Butler University, where he teaches user interface development and user experience design. Throughout his experiences working as a leader in tech, he's known underrepresentation of BIPOC and actively works to be a force of change instead of statistic. And it's my honor to turn the rest of the session over to Dorsh. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it. Sorry for being a few minutes late. We got a few technical difficulties over here, right? But all is good. Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks for joining the talk. So today I'm just going to go over, so let me find my screen here. Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
I can see it.
Okay, brilliant. So let's do this. So everyone can see my screen. I can't see myself anymore, but that should be fine. So we're all good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So today's talk, I wasn't sure the full audience of who was coming. It seems like most of the folks in here are UI and UX folks. So some of the stuff I might go over might sound redundant, but I'm just going to try and put it in the context of corporate and how it works in the enterprise. I've done both jobs, which I'll talk about kind of, when I go into my biography or whatever. But yeah, basically this talk will be about the differences between UI and UX in the enterprise and kind of how I got to where I am today. All right. So if you have questions at any time, just feel free to, chime in. I want to see something real quick here before I continue. I want to see if I can get this screen with y'all's faces and mine on this screen. Perfect. I did. And slideshow. Cool. Now I can see what you're seeing. All right. So back to it. All right. So today's talk is just going to be, and since we're a few minutes late, I'm going to try and get through everything as quick as I can. I talk a lot, and I'm pretty passionate about all of this stuff. So I'm going to try and make sure that we have time to, converse and talk about any questions you guys might have. But this is the basic overview of what we're going over. Just kind of my biography and how I got here today. What is a UX designer? Like I said, in the context of the enterprise, how that works in corporate. What is a UI developer, right? And how the two roles are different. Some career readiness things that you can look at, kind of like how the hiring pyramid works. and what culture fit actually means. And then we'll go over resume types and how there's different types of resumes that you can use to help you kind of hack your way into whatever kind of role you want or whatever you want to do, right? And then at the end, we'll have time for any questions. Okay. All right. So, like I said, my name is Dorsh Deans. I went to high school in Houston, Texas. I'm Jamaican, so big up all of the yardy them. There's any Jamaican on the call today, big up yourself. You don't know. So I went to high school in Houston. I played soccer, and I got a full ride scholarship to come to Butler and play soccer. So this was in 2006. And I'm a big Manchester United fan as well. My dad his family's from Manchester. So I call myself Jaminglican, got the Jamaican, English, and American thing going on here, right? So football, or as you guys call it, is soccer, was my main dream. And I got, like I said, a soccer scholarship to come up to Butler. And in one of the very first games as a freshman, one of our first big games, so we're about 9 games into the season, I'd say 9 or 10 games into the season. I'm a freshman and I'm getting playing time. We're playing against IU. So Butler IU is usually a pretty big game. And we had just gotten the Butler Bowl. It's like the AstroTurf Arena, kind of where all the games are played. It was the first year that it was installed as well. So it was like this new thing. We had a pretty big crowd out for the game, IU fans and Butler fans. And so I'm just trying to set the scene for you guys here. Big game, right? And so the goalie kicks the ball out. Our goalie kicks the ball out, and it lands at the halfway point, like at the halfway mark, and it bounces once. And I go in full speed, and one of the IU defenders comes in full speed, and we both miss the ball, and he headbutts me in my eye, in the crown right here of my eye. My nose shattered, my skull collapsed right here. Totally just ruined my face, right? And basically after that happened, I wasn't able to play soccer anymore, right? It was this big long thing that I had to go through. Originally in Indiana, they were going to cut my face off to get to all the bones and everything, but my mom flew me out to Houston, where like I told you guys, I went to high school, and they were able to do this surgery where they just blew the skin up off of my face, or they made a few small incisions in my head, blew the skin up off my face, and then fixed all the bones that were broken. So I have 3 metal plates in my head. My nose bridge is fake. Lots of bone putty to reconstruct my face, but it was a pretty sad thing. And so after that, I ended up not playing soccer anymore. They still honored my scholarship, but that was the end of my soccer career, right? So after I graduated from Butler, I ended up graduating from Butler with a music degree. So I switched all of my hopes and dreams of being a professional footballer into music. So Butler had a music program, a very good music program, and I ended up switching into that. And so after I graduated from Butler, I moved to New York, and I actually had a really successful release of an album. It was called Neapolitan, and I was able to work on some pretty cool projects and with some producing for some up and coming artists at the time. Got to work on the Skyfall remix project with Adele, the 007 movie. Yuna, she was an artist coming up at the time. Did her Live Your Life remix for Cornerstone, Fader magazine in New York. This is that Neapolitan album that I did. I got to tour all over Europe. Got to do some really cool things for a couple years. And after doing that for a couple years, I decided that I really wanted a change for my life, and decided to move to Jamaica, where I set up a recording studio and a technology hub to teach people how to code, right? So I guess the only thing I haven't told you about this time frame is that while I was a touring, traveling musician, I was also a self-taught web developer, right? So if you can think back to 2010, this is when MySpace, or 2006, excuse me, 2007, 8, 9, 10, around that time, MySpace was actually the platform of choice for social media. So just to show you how old I am. But to have a cool MySpace page, you had to know HTML and CSS. And this is where all the new musicians were coming out of. So think about how TikTok is now for hot new music. MySpace was that in my time. And so if you wanted to have a really cool like site or even a Facebook page, you had to know a little bit of PHP, HTML, CSS, just some web technologies. And I always got interested into it when I was at Butler. And so it was something that I did as like before remote work was a thing. I just kind of built sites for other musicians and stuff in the industry, right? And so I was doing this while I was touring, and I decided that I wanted to go to Jamaica and set up this was one of my first cracks at entrepreneurship. I decided that I wanted to set up a recording studio that all my links and contacts that I had made throughout the industry could fly down, record their entire album, stay up here in the mountains at this villa, right? And record the entire album, and then you leave, and then we do all of the mixing, mastering, and everything, and then send it back to you as one project or whatever. So this whole first floor of this villa is a recording studio. It has a bedroom down here. There's 2 rooms on the bottom, and then throughout the house there's actually 10 bedrooms. So it just created a record and stay space. And actually Chris Blackwell, the guy who found Bob Marley, ended up doing the same idea in Portland, and it's called G-Jam. The only thing different about mine was in Jamaica, it's a third world country, and a lot of people don't have money, especially up in this region where I'm from. And the tech part came in where for the folks who didn't have money to pay the recording fees, we put them through little scavenger hunts where they'd have to set up like a GitHub and write like very basic rudimentary coding programs, right? And once they pass that, then I would consider that like tokens to use the studio. So it was kind of like teaching a man how to fish instead of just handing them a fish. And that was kind of the idea that of kind of how that was working. So while I was there, we were down there for about almost 2 years, my partner and I, and she ended up getting pregnant with my first son, which I have 4 now, just to give you an idea how long ago this was. But we went to Houston because that's where we decided we want to have the baby. Didn't want to have him in Jamaica and deal with all of the immigration stuff. So I ended up going to this place called Iron Yard, which was a new thing at the time. It's a boot camp, kind of like what you guys are doing right now. But it was called Iron Yard, and it focused on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And since I knew what I was doing in Jamaica with this place, I was like, hey, if I'm going to be teaching people how to code, I want to be amazing. I want to know best of the best, everything. So I invested in going into this boot camp. It was 16 weeks, I think. And it was a pretty hefty sum up front, but I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. Well, after we had the baby, we came up to, so this is like January of 2015. I finished the course, right? It was like the winter of 2014, and it led into the January, February of 2015. We'll say like March 2015, so like a month after I finished the course, right? And we had our son in like October, right? So he's about 3 or 4 months old, and we're thinking about going back to Jamaica, right, to go and do this. I come up to Indiana to where her family is from so that they can meet my son. And while I'm up here, I run into one of my friends from the music industry. So I'm just trying to set this scene for you guys to show you like how when you're moving towards something, you never know exactly how it's going to work out, but the universe has plans for you if you just see the signs, right? So I run into one of my friends from the music industry who's walking over here in Fountain Square over by Lilly. And he's like, hey, let's go and have lunch at Siam Square. It's a Thai restaurant here in Fountain Square. And I go and meet with him, and he's like, hey man, I haven't heard from you in a while. I've been watching all your updates on Facebook, whatever. Are you back from Jamaica? And I was like, no, I'm actually going back to, you know, continue with what we're doing. He's like, hey man, I really want to talk to you about something. I have a gig here at the company that I work at. It was called Apparatus at the time. They've been bought out now, but he said they needed a front-end developer to work at Barclays in UK. Remember, guys, I just was in this boot camp for JavaScript. I had been teaching myself all these years. I have a degree in music, right? But I don't have any type of credentials other than this certificate from this boot camp and then the skills that I had acquired over the years. This would have been like my first like corporate thing, right? I've been always just doing my own projects on the side. So I ended up taking the gig and moving here to Indianapolis. And it was a travel consulting thing where this was actually Barclays in London. So there was a little back and forth between the company and Barclays about bringing me out there full time to live out there and do this. But the contract ended up drying up at the end of 2016. And since I didn't move to London, I decided that I was going to go and try and make more sense of my background. And so I enrolled at IUPUI and got a master's degree in human computer interaction, which is a computer science degree in the informatics space. So human computer interaction is UX, basically, long story short. Well, when this happened, crazy thing, I get a call from Ellen DeGeneres' DJ at the time, Tony Akomboya. And that album that I told you guys I'd put out in 2012, Neapolitan, somehow it came across his Spotify weekly or whatever. And he sends me an email and says, hi, I heard this song of yours. I'm shooting a movie called Echo Park for Netflix, and I want to use this song of yours. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool, bet. A week later, I get another email, and he's like, hey, I found another song on Neapolitan that we want to use for this movie. And this is 2016. I hadn't been thinking about music. I just had my son. I'm totally ingrained in tech, working in tech, not doing music at all. But what I had put out in the universe, right, it bared fruit, right? And so I got my first licensing check for a movie through this Echo Park opportunity. And I was like, wow, this is really awesome. I'm really enjoying tech life. Around this time, since that project at Barclays had dried up, I started consulting at Lilly. Okay, so this is kind of how it all comes together. I got another project through the same company, and they put me on a project at Lilly, right, while I was doing my master's degree. So I worked and did my master's at the same time. While I was doing that, Cornell came out with an online program for UX in product and service design. I invested in that. I took that because I was just like, you know, I just wanted to learn everything I possibly could about UX, as I had been working as a UI developer all this time, right? So from the Barclays gig up till about right now, I've been doing all front-end design, JavaScript, HTML, CSS stuff. But I got the master's degree in UX because I wanted to switch over, right? So I did the thing at Cornell to get more into the UX stuff. And then in 2018, I got the design lead job at Lilly after consulting for them for about 2 years. They brought me over full time to do this role. And so after I got that job, I kept going with the certifications. I found out about this thing called Nielsen Norman. They are like the leaders in like UX, I guess, and certifications. Took all 3 that they had to offer and ended up getting a master's certificate in that. So pretty much if you look at my journey, it's just been every single year I try and either get a certificate or enroll in school or do something to further my education in UX, right? And so the end of my journey pretty much is that here today, I still get to do music. It never went away. It's something that I love very much. In 2020, I actually released an album called UI UX, and all of the tracks on the album use some sort of terminology, whether it's UI or UX. So think like cascading style sheets, React, or HTML5. And each of the songs are loosely based around those themes. So if you want to check that out, I pulled these numbers today. This is like the most recent of my Spotify numbers. This was my 2022 numbers, and I'm pushing for 1 million this year, a couple million. That's what I'd like to see. But guys, this is just something that I get to do while working in tech. I didn't have to give up anything, right? And then this picture is from Thailand. I got to go to Thailand last year. I had a song go viral on TikTok in Thailand, and the Ministry of Commerce, right? So the Thai Ministry of Commerce reached out to the producer of the song and had us do their Bangkok Gems and Jewelry show, which thousands of people go to. Billions of dollars are spent. This is like their biggest export in Thailand, is their craft artisanship, with like Cartier gets all their jewels made in Thailand, and a lot of the big gems and jewel brands. So I was the opening performer for the I think it's the 63rd annual Bangkok Gems and Jewelry Fair. And I got to do that last year. They flew me and my wife out. It was just a really awesome experience. So just saying, like, I started with sports, I got into my passion of music, and technology was always there. And it's just something that I fell in love with, and I was able to do it all, basically, and raise kids. Like I said, I have 4 kids. You can probably hear some of them screaming in the background right now, but it is what it is, right? So that's a little bit about me. Here's some of the brands that I've worked with over the years. I gave a talk at MIT about my album UI UX and how the user-centered design process was used to create all the songs on the album. They were very interested in that. So like I said, I teach at Butler UI and UX courses. I worked at Barclays, DirecTV. I work at Lilly's, one of my big clients right now. Chase, the city of Indianapolis, Mayor Joe Hogsett, done things for him. The Iron Yard, I went back and did things for them. People's United Bank, CPH UX, that's a thing in Denmark. So I just try and stay global and work, in a lot of healthcare and finance. I feel like those are 2 of the most important things to humanity: your health and your money, right? And so those are the industries that I tend to find myself in. And yeah, it just kind of shows you that everybody needs UX or UI or has some sort of tech department. You don't have to just work at Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and Google. There are so many companies out here that need our expertise. And so, yeah, that's basically me in a nutshell, right? And why I'm here today talking to you guys. All right, cool. So really, there's 2 things that this talk is about. Job specifics, like what is a day in the life of a UI or UX designer in the enterprise, what that looks like at big companies. And then just career readiness, just little tips and tricks I could give you guys to better present yourself to employers and get the job of your dreams, right? Because that's why we're all doing this, right? So real quick, I think since I know this group is UI and UX, I don't need to go over this in so much depth. I'll get more to like the career readiness stuff because I see we got like 15, 20 minutes. I want to leave enough time for questions. All right. There they go. All right. So what is user experience? UX is the process of addressing everything that encompasses the entire product, right? I like to have people think outside of the computer first when we think about UX. So if you've ever bought a pair of shoes, right? Or looked at a pair of shoes in a store, right? You open the box and there's some paper, usually stuffed down inside the sneaker or the boot or whatever you're buying, right? That's part of the experience. They designed it that way, right? That is the experience they wanted the user, you, to have when you unboxed their product, right? There's reasons behind that, but it's just like something that maybe you don't think about all the time but it was designed that way to stuff that paper down in the shoe. Another thing you could think about outside of the computer for UX is when you walk into a restaurant and there's that sign that says, please seat yourself, or the sign that says, please wait to be seated. Both of those are experiences that they're trying to give you as the user of their, in this case, restaurant, right? So user experiences are all around you, and it's encompassing the entire experience that you have with someone's product or service, right? So if you think about UX, some examples, it's really getting that human sentiment, right? What people are thinking, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, and converting all of that into a usable product or service, right? So UX is at the forefront of human sentiment, listening to people, observing people, and then turning all of that into a workable, usable product, right? So that's a good way of thinking about UX, right? UX designers dream up innovative ideas on new solutions or existing solutions, right? Existing solution would be like if you have an Android or an iPhone, I'm sure you've gotten the little update button where it says, please update your phone to iOS 15.3.2 or Android, whatever it's on. Those little updates are because they're constantly running user experience cycles on their product. They're listening to what people are saying and how they're interacting with the product, and they're constantly making updates to it to make the experience better. Okay? How is that done? It's done with a process called user-centered design. So if you're working in UX, you're going to be using this iterative process called user-centered design. UCD is a process of 5 steps, usually, that teams will go through to figure out the best way to bring a product to market, okay? So this is what the user-centered design process looks like holistically. It starts with empathy, and it ends with testing something, okay? So the very first thing you do in the user-centered design process is you empathize with your users. You figure out, the challenge that they're facing. Why are you building this thing, or why are you thinking about building this thing? So the empathy is the phase where you survey people, you do focus groups, you interview folks, you observe folks. This is where you get an idea, a deep understanding of what people are going through or what the situation requires, right? The next thing you do is you define the problem. You clearly articulate it with a statement that we call, how might we, right? So that's when you're done doing all of the research on your users and interviewing and focus groups, you'll start to see patterns emerge from what people have said and what people are doing. And that's where you clearly articulate the problem that you're going to solve, and that you're going to take into the next phase of the user-centered design process, which is ideation, okay? Once you start ideating, this is where you brainstorm or you brain think ideas out. You storyboard how that might work out. You basically throw everything here at it. Like, there's no holds bar. You just come up with ideas of solving the how might we statement that you came up with. Once you've ideated and you've gone through all of the different possibilities that there could be to solve the problem, then you move into the prototype phase, and then you test. So this is how UX designers work pretty much on a day-to-day basis. And this is why you constantly see your products coming out with updates. Or if you even bought a juice blender 2 years ago, you'll notice that the new model looks probably nothing like the one that you have. It's because it's been constantly going through iterative testing cycles. So I'm just trying to get you to get your mind out of UX just being for the computer. UX is happening in everything. Everything is done by design. Okay? Right. So our experience is this user-centered design process is used by product designers as well, like physical, like water bottles, and how the shape of them has changed over the years because they've looked at so many different types of hands and all that kind of stuff, right? So UX is not just inside of the computer. All right. So that's the process that is used. So some key takeaways for UX designers: they're concerned with behavior and how people feel, what that sentiment is. They determine user interaction, how you interact with a product. Remember, we talked about the shoes or the restaurant, right? How that interaction is going to go. That's done by a UX designer. They convey deep knowledge in the how and why a product works the way it does. And they do that by guiding the users with data-driven design. We use the data from the empathy, from the define stage, from the ideate stage, to prototype and build things that we can test in the market. Okay, so that's the role of a UX designer. On the other side of things now, you have user interface designers or developers, right? And UIs are just things that you interact with. So think about your phone. You touch your phone, it moves, that screen, all of that is the interface. It's things that you interact with, right? So if you play Xbox or you use a mouse, right, to move things around on your screen, those are things you are interacting with, you're interfacing with. So those things are considered user interfaces, right? Keyboards, computers, iPads, iPhones, or Android phones, anything you're touching or interfacing with, right? That is a UI. So the UI folks, the UI designers, they take design concepts, everything that came from that UX and user-centered design process, they turn that into actual code, right? Or the actual product that you're interfacing with. So they take all of that analysis and sentiment and everything that you did in the UX process and turn it into a working product, right? A website, a mobile app, a water bottle, or whatever it is, right? Those are your interface designers. In our case, it's computers and apps. So that's what the UI designers and developers do. So basically, they'll take everything that came out of the UX process, the color patterns, the typography, the iconography, the colors, and they'll turn it into what you see as code over here. And this is what the browser reads, okay? And so this is how code works and how UX and UI come together to create digital products that you see today. Research is done, iteration is done, prototyping is done. Once everyone signs off on the design and how it's going to work, then it comes over to development and it starts being developed. So I like to tell people to think about it kind of like if you've ever built a house or seen the floor plans for a house or an apartment. The designer designs where the bathroom is going to go, where all of the HVAC is going to go, how the client wants the home built, and then that I would call that the UX, and then the developers who come in with the actual wood and nails and sheetrock and all of that, they're the developers, right? You can look at that team like the UI people who are taking the design and turning it into something real, okay? So that's just another analogy. So key takeaways. UI designers are artists with technical acumen. They have an eye for visual design, HTML, CSS. They're responsible for conveying the brand identity, and they guide users with visual elements, things you can touch and see, okay? Here's a little graphic to help you just see it plain as day. UX on the left side, UI on the right side, right? So wireframing, interviewing, user research, all of that's UX. UI is all the layouts, the colors, the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, the Python, the code, right? All of that kind of stuff. User experience jobs, according to Indeed, the average user experience salary right now in the US is $99,000 with inflation. So that's cool. And the high is about 145. And that's in our area. If you go on the coast, these numbers are in the millions with the package. So it changes depending on where you live, right? But for the Midwest and our market, this is about right. And then over here on the UI side, this is kind of what you're looking at for an average user interface job here in the Midwest, okay? And like I said, on the coasts, New York, LA, it's going to be a lot higher. All right, So do we have any questions about UI or UX before I move on to the career readiness stuff and things that you should have to get into a job like this?
How would you suggest bettering your eye for visual, like what's visually appealing? Because I feel like I have the like personal side of UI UX in regards to like working with people, talking, and knitting. But then sometimes I feel like design wise, my designs feel old school. And so, how would you suggest, you know, modernizing that?
Yes. I'm going to show you a site that I tell my students to go to all the time. It's called Awards. AWWWARDS. Okay. And this site focuses on best design sites of the day. So they'll go through and they'll be every day, they'll have inspiring sites that have all been built with modern web tools like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? And you can go and just see like what the latest trends in design. So it'll show you how well it was designed, how well the usability was, what the creativity metrics were, and then what is the content on the actual site. And you can just go through here and look at some of the coolest sites that are out and about right now. Okay. So here's one site. It's called awards.com. If you are an Adobe user, there is a site called behance.net, and you can come on here and literally see thousands of other people's work. So let's look at web projects. Right? And you can go through. So like, look at this. Ivanka from wherever is just showing you, some design ideas and the projects. You can rate them and you can just look at what other folks are doing around the world. So this is kind of like a social media for just showing off your design chops and getting ideas from other designers that are building things, right? So I could share a whole list of these. I have some that I give my students, but these two sites are like easy wins for getting ideas on what's out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question just to kind of piggyback off of that. So would you say we find a site on Awards and try to copy it in Figma or Adobe to see if we can recreate that to kind of get that skill up? Would you recommend that or just not?
No, I wouldn't recommend that. What I would recommend is a lot of this, guys, is feeling, right? So when you go to, do you have a favorite website? Is there a site that you just like love how it works and feels and looks?
Garrett's Popcorn.
Okay. How do I spell that?
Garrett. Then Popcorn. It should come up.
Garrett Popcorn?
Garrett's Popcorn, Chicago. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's check this site out. All right. So, okay. Join the Yummy list. I like this. So this little effect right here is called parallax. You see this little popcorn floating with us as we move? You guys see that? That's on the right side. Maybe you might not be able to, but yeah, the way these elements are axised, right? We're on the Z axis, so it's the one that creates that 3D look where this is here first, and this is here second, and this is here third. Do you guys see how your eyes are seeing that? This is a cool site for little things like that. And look, they do it here again. They switch the parallax to this side. This is a cool site. So what I would say is how I was able to just come on here immediately and recognize things that I like, the parallax, the Z-axis-y stuff, the color palette. These are the things you're looking for when you're designing your stuff. Just run it back in your head and say, I liked how Garrett Popcorn did XYZ. I liked the parallax. I liked the color palette. Maybe you like this font. You can find this font by inspecting the site. Oh, sorry. When you get these skills, you'll be able to use your dev skills to find little things like this and find the fonts or anything that you liked on the site, and then you take that into your creation. But I wouldn't say to copy anyone's things. I'd say take elements and inspiration from sites that you like and try and incorporate them into the problem you're trying to solve, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. So I'm going to jump into just the career readiness stuff. Where did my... Okay, there they are. So let me move this. All right. So as you're thinking about getting ready to do this, I'd say the main thing is never stop learning and never stop meeting new people. Okay. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to show you exactly why here in a visual. So I had a mentor tell me one time, and it stuck with me, that your network is your net worth. Okay. And I'll say that one more time slow. Your network will be equal to your net worth, meaning the people that you know, the people that you call your network will somehow determine how much money you make or have access to throughout your lifetime. Okay. And I'm going to show you an example. You hear it all the time. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. I'm going to show you an example of how hiring works in corporate. Most of the time, this is like a overarching. It could be different at other companies, but this is what I've seen throughout, my time hiring folks and working in corporate. This is usually how it tends to break down. And this statement starts to make much more sense. Okay. So let's look at the hiring process. So this is what happens when a company decides to hire someone, pretty much for any role. This could work, but we're talking about UI and UX jobs. Okay. So the first thing that happens is the company recognizes that they have a need and they are going to invest dollars into satisfying this need with what they'll call a resource, or you or I, an employee of theirs. Okay. So that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is that job is posted internally within that company. Okay. So the first thing that happens is they realize they have a need. They come up with the money to pay for this person, right? They let HR know what the salary won't go over, how much they've come up with to pay for this resource, and then they post the job internally. First thing that happens is friends and family of the hiring manager or anyone that works at the company, they're sought out first. Okay. Friends and family of the job creator or anyone that works at the company, they're sought out first. Okay. Then employees who already work at the company, who think they might be interested in switching a role, then they're considered for this internal posting, right? So those are the first two groups of people that are going to get a stab at this job, and look how close they are to the person who created the job. All right. If no one here meets the need of the hiring manager, they go to a recruiting firm. Okay. This is how it works. So recruiting firm, think like Creative Circle, think like Tech Systems, think those types of folks, right? Vitamin C, right? You go to a recruiting firm, and the next thing that happens is the friends and family of the recruiters and the staff at that firm, they're sought after to fill this job because it's incentive based. They pay their employees thousands of dollars to help fill this role and help them get this role filled for this company, right? If they can't do it, then they post it on Indeed and LinkedIn. And that's where you and I will see it one day while on LinkedIn or Indeed and say, oh, there's a job open at XYZ company. It's already been through all of this. That's why we're seeing it, because they weren't able to come up with the right individual just yet for this hiring manager. So it's fallen down to Indeed. You guys following me? Okay. When you get here, look how far you are away from the person who created the job, because you weren't friends and family at this point. You weren't friends and family of the recruiting firm. You're a user on Indeed or LinkedIn. So you're getting it pretty much last. Okay. So what happens if you put in a good resume and someone sees it? It's usually not the person hiring, like myself. It's going to be someone from HR who has limited understanding of the job or what the need is, but saw some buzzwords on your resume and decided to reach out to you. So here you are in the first interview, because you're not friends and family of anyone that could have vouched for you in this arena right here. So you're way out here at number 5, taking your first interview with someone from HR who has limited understanding of what the hiring manager actually needs. So what happens next? You get a second interview. This is why they go 1, 2, 3. This is why the process works the way it does. You get a second interview with someone from the actual department or the team that HR has called them and said, hey, I think I might have someone who fits the job description that you set forth for us to go looking for, right? Then someone from this team will talk to you and decide if you're a good candidate to actually meet the hiring manager. And that's usually in your third interview, where you get to meet this person who created the job, who has access to the bag, if that makes sense, right? So coming back to this statement, right? Your network is your net worth. You want to be right here. Friends and family of people that work at the company. Does that make sense? Because by the time you're out here and out here, look how many steps you are away from the person who hired, right? So when you end up in this first interview, second interview, and you don't hear back, don't feel any type of way. You need to understand that the process is broken. Like, this is just the way we go about it in corporate. I just wanted to lay it out for you to understand, like, oh, man, things were going good with that recruiter that I talked to, but I haven't gotten a second interview. This person literally usually knows nothing about UX or UI or what they're hiring for. They're just reading off of something. You have to get this interview to even get close to the hiring manager, because this person is going to have way more understanding of the discipline, of the ask for the role, of what the company's looking for, and then they'll move you on to the hiring manager, who will finally pull the final plug. Okay, so that's how it works. I know we're short on time. So the resume types you want to have, the first one is a Word doc resume. This is the one that you're going to submit to LinkedIn and Indeed. And there's usually a bot, right, that will go through and look for the words or the skills that the job is looking for. And if you get a certain number of checks, you'll end up on that HR person's desk and they'll call you because the bot said that you have enough of the skills that they're looking for. You'll want a graphic design resume like this if you're going for a design heavy opportunity, or you're at a career fair or a conference. Bring something like this also to your third interview, because that's where you're actually meeting a hiring manager, this person. So you'll want like a resume that is going to stand out amongst the crowd, something like this, right? Where you have all your information laid out and it can tell the story of you in not so Word doc format, right? So you'll use this to get in the door. You'll use this to get the job, right? And you'll also use things like portfolio websites, right? So I have a portfolio website for this thing that I made for my class, but it just shows, like, you know, how you look at interaction, how you look at scrolling, how you look at colors, how you look at layouts, how you look at motion, right? This is where you'll go through and have all of your portfolio items, right? But this is where you'll have a site. Testimonials, your education, something on the web that is at yourname.com. So like I have a unique name. So Dorshinho with UX in it is like a name that I've come up with for myself over the years. But this will take you to like my site. It talks about who I am, what I do, what my vision, what my mission is, my education, right? What I'm good at, the projects that I work on, right? My passion projects, talk about my music. So this is a website that is my.com that talks to all of my skills and everything, right? And then I also have a design resume that I use that matches the website. So you see the color palette going back and forth. Everything is in sync. It tells the same story. It just makes sure that if you come across my brand, right, everything is cohesive. So you're going to want something like that to tell your story. Yeah, so that's basically everything. I know we're running short on time. I'm sorry for the first couple minutes there, but if you have any questions, I'm here to answer anything you've got. But those are the main things that I want to talk to you about today.
Looks like Jalen has his hand raised. See a couple.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. How would what are your recommendations for structuring case studies on your portfolio?
So here's what I would say. For the folks who don't have real world experience or anything that is like out in the market, right? You're doing personal projects or like things that you have done. You're really going to want to focus on the structure of that going through. Let me how you went through this process. So when you're talking about structure, make sure it lines up exactly to the user-centered design process. Because if you don't have like corporate experience, I'm going to be looking at, well, how well do you understand the user-centered design process, right? So you're really going to want to explain to me how you set your survey up, why you talked to as many people as you did, what you got from that, and how that moved you into your how might we question. Once you got there, how much brainstorming did you do? What types of methods did you use to disseminate that information? You get what I'm saying? You're going to want to structure it literally one-to-one with how the design process works and go in depth as much as you can to show that you have a supreme understanding of the process, even if you don't have any like actual job experience yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Raven as well. Raven, did you have a question? Are you still on?
Hi. Sorry. I wanted to know if we could have access to your LinkedIn, if that was okay.
Absolutely. And I will actually be back on Thursday to speak to you guys about my actual company that does this and works to get BIPOC folks their first opportunities in tech, and we'll have a whole discussion about why that is. But yeah, there is I can definitely want to get in touch with you guys, and please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Here's my if you just look for me, let me go to LinkedIn real quick. See what I think I can share this in the chat with everyone.
Yeah.
Let me do that. Okay. There's my LinkedIn.
Still see your hand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Should I go or wait?
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. So, especially having had like the bootcamp experience as well as, I'm not sure if you did computer science for like a second bachelor's or for a master's. I had previously, because I did the boot camp for UX design, and I've heard previously
Okay.
that like kind of flippantly that the people coming through boot camps are essentially like the working force, and then people that are going to get their like degree in it are actually going to be like the managers and higher levels. I'm wondering if that's something that you've seen. Is there any like validity to that? Or is it just like a different type of education and experience that you get when you actually go and get a degree for computer science and like the computer human interaction?
That is a very great question. I'd never thought about it that way, but I'm just trying to think about everywhere I've worked and what I've seen. And I can be honest and say that there is a boot camp bias out there. And wow, that's very interesting. A lot of the folks that are in managerial positions usually have MBAs or master's degrees in something like this. And yes, I can say that, yeah, there's a boot camp bias where people feel like, well, I went to a 2-year program to learn this, and this person just did 4 months, right? Even if you have the same skills. I think subconsciously, this is why I've continued, because I started at a boot camp even before I went and got my master's, that I could feel in rooms, even where I was crushing it, that people were like, how is that? That doesn't make sense. I did computer science and my sites don't look like that. You know what I mean? Where it's like skills first didn't matter. It was affiliation to a university that mattered, right? And I think you still have that in some corporate enterprises where you got these, clubs, right? The IU club, the Purdue club, what school did you graduate from, right? But I'd say that talent will always outshine degrees. I think if you're just talented and you can stick with it and show your value, it'll always stand out over someone who doesn't have it, if that makes sense. Because of the work that we're doing, because it's so visual and people have to use it and look at it, higher ups will always go with what is going to make them look best, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. Got you.
Dina or Dinah? You're on mute if you're speaking.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Since I was wondering, like, starting out, what advice would you give someone to gain leadership experience to be a lead designer at one point in time? Like, what should we do like now to kind of cultivate those soft skills or even just get that experience? Something you can share with us that we can do to build that leadership in what we need to do?
Yes. And this is kind of how my agency started, actually. If you know, and you do, there's this book called 7 Degrees of Separation that basically, everyone you need to get to anyone. Even if you wanted to get to President Obama or anyone like that, you could, because if you start looking at 7 people one of them can get you to someone that can get you to someone that can get you to someone. And it just shows how we're all connected, right? And the reason I was saying this is you're going to want to do projects that for friends and family, right? This is where the friends and family thing comes in, that you can get something out in the market. So this is what I'm saying. If you know someone who owns a church and they are maybe thinking about doing a app for the church or something, you get involved in that project and you run it, whether it's for money or not. You want to get yourself in a position where you can run a project from end to end, overseeing other folks, working with different types of people, getting yourself that experience. Reason why I say this, even if you were to get a job at Geico or Indeed or Lilly or anywhere tomorrow, they're not going to give you that type of experience right away. It'll take years to build up, trust and all of that before you get the opportunity that you're looking for. So what I've done, especially being a person of color, and I don't really work with very many people that look like me, you got to find those opportunities for yourself outside of work hours, right? So you can do this for yourself right now. You don't need to wait before you get a job or anything. There is someone in your 7 degrees right now who owns a business who needs the skills that you have right now. Can you find a way to plug yourself into that opportunity? Right, even if it's not right away, what you're offering is value. You have skills, right? So it's kind of like that, right? And so you just got to find these opportunities for yourself. And even when you start working, you're going to have to do either passion projects that you release into the market or find things outside of your job that you can lead and do to get that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I just saw a question come in. Can you tell us how we can turn our designs and web services into LLCs? Yes. And you should look into other structures too as well. I'm not like a tax person or business attorney, but there are other corporate structures out there beyond LLCs that you could look into depending on what you're trying to do. But the main thing is, you go through the small business process, right? You decide what type of entity you'd like to be, the types of projects you'd like to take on. Do you want to do value-based projects? Do you want to do hourly-based projects? It's really all up to you. But what I would say is figure out what fair market pricing is, so you're not selling yourself too short or destabilizing the market for everyone else who is out here doing it. And really the main thing is just, believe in your skills, right? You'll always, no matter what, no matter how far you are in your career, even me, anything I do, if it's been a year or 2 years, I always look back at it and I'm like, oh, I could have done that better, because you're always getting better. So don't approach a project and say, I don't know if I'd be able to do this, or maybe I should pass it off to someone else who's more experienced. No, take that on, because you'll gain the experience. No matter how good you think it is right now, in a year's time or 2 years' time, you're going to want to go back and make updates to it. That's why we're on iPhone 14. If they thought the best one was number one, we wouldn't have any, they wouldn't make a new one every year. You get the idea? So every product needs iterated on. It'll always need to become better. So I'd say just make the first one. Make that iPhone 1, don't be afraid to do it, right? Cool. I don't know if we have any more questions, but like I said, I will be back on Thursday to talk about my agency and what we do. And yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I was off camera and on mute. But yeah, we are a little bit over, which is fine. Uh, this is being recorded, so we will definitely share all the gems that you shared during this presentation, and it'll be accessible for other UX students who weren't able to make it. And definitely, I look forward to having you back on Thursday. I really appreciate this. Doing this. I thought you gave excellent insight, and I definitely appreciate your candor and honesty. That's one of the most important things, especially for us in this space, is that we keep it real with each other, and that we really give each other the real things that are really going to help us move forward. And some of those things aren't always the things that we want to hear all the time, because we always remember, that there again, until things change, we have to work within the system, that we have. And it's like we can be working on that change, but I think it's important when we equip each other with learning how we get over those obstacles, right? Even though they exist and they probably shouldn't exist, but that's always the best advice. So I appreciate you again. Look forward to seeing you again on Thursday. And I hope everybody has a great start to their new year. And as always, hit me up in Slack if you need anything. Peace.
Thank you.
you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.